The fighting game genre contains multitudes. There are 2D fighters, 3D fighters, team fighters, anime fighters, platform fighters. The list goes on. One of the most overlooked subgenres in the FGC, at least at a competitive level, is the arena fighter. Games like Naruto Ultimate Ninja Storm and Dragonball Xenoveres were fun to play at parties or with friends, but have never been taken seriously in competitive circles. Pokken Tournament, released in 2015, was the closest we've come to seeing an arena fighter go mainstream, and since then, nothing else has quite made the cut. But what if a developer were to take a page out of Super Smash Bros. Book to try and create the greatest crossover event in anime history? Seriously, the idea is almost too good to be true. Naruto, Dragon Ball, One Piece, Bleach, Yu-Gi-Oh!, and is that a JOJO reference? It seemed too perfect to fail, but somehow, fail it did. This is the story of one of the biggest flops in fighting game history. This is
Jump Force.
Jump Force is a 3v3 arena fighter developed by Spike Chunsoft, the company behind series like Pokemon Mystery Dungeon and the first 5 Dragon Quest games. The studio also has a history of working with Shonen Jump characters, having developed J-Star's Victory VS, another anime crossover fighter, and One Piece Burning Blood. Like their previous titles, Jump Force fits into the arena fighting genre. While the gameplay of arena fighters has never really appealed to the hardcore fighting game scene, as characters were often unbalanced and the controls tended to be too simple, the initial hype for Jump Force was palpable. I mean, the prospect of having Ichigo going toe-to-toe with Vegeta is enough to get any anime fan excited. While the hype grew and more characters were revealed, there were some concerns about where the game was headed. While it was amazing to watch Goku, Naruto, and Luffy beat down on Frieza, there were a lot of comments lamenting the game's aesthetic, as well as the game's animations looking clunky and unpolished. Still, most brushed it off at the time and chalked it up to the game still being a work in progress, holding on to hope that the developers would somehow fix these down the road. Unfortunately, when the game released on February 14th, 2018, the developers did not fix those problems, and, as the public would soon discover, they also left a lot of other problems in the game as well. The first big issue that was immediately apparent was the design of the characters. On release, the game had 40 playable characters from 16 different series. Unfortunately, some of these characters evolved a lot throughout their respective shows and mangas, developing powers and abilities that they didn't necessarily have when their show first started. What this led to was Jump Force being a breeding ground for spoilers, with some characters' movesets featuring attacks from deep into their respective series. For example, in One Piece chapter 796, it's revealed that... Sorry about that, my bad. In order to avoid any spoilers at all, you would have to watch more than 3,000 episodes of anime. For some of you, that's just an average Wednesday, but for most, that was a pretty tall order. On top of this, even with some of the most iconic anime characters in history, the game lacked a single-player story that was exciting or even remotely interesting. The plot of the story mode is simple. New York City is attacked, and during the battle, you're killed. Then, you're revived by Trunks from Dragon Ball. After the battle, you're invited to join the Jump Force to help fight against evil-hearted humans turned into creatures called Venoms. From there, you're able to join one of 3 squads, led by either Luffy, Goku, or Naruto. Overall, the story missions revolve around finding other heroes to recruit to the Jump Force, and then finding bad guys to fight. With so many iconic characters to choose from, it's unfortunate that most of them got barely any screen time. Fan favorites like Dio from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure only appear for a brief moment in the game, and others felt like they were just pigeonholed in for no real reason. To make matters worse, one of the most fleshed out characters in the game is Light Yagami from Death Note, but he isn't even playable as a character. That's right, one of the most iconic anime characters of all time isn't even playable in the game. It's ridiculous. The gameplay was also unbelievably repetitive. You fight some enemies, then find a new teammate, then fight more enemies, and fight a boss. Rinse and repeat. When you take all of this, the constant loading screens between cutscenes, and the poorly written story, Jump Force's single-player mode felt like a really last-second addition. So the single player sucks. That's not why most people play fighting games. So what about the multiplayer? Well, on a basic, fundamental level, Jump Force has issues. Like most anime arena fighters, Jump Force lacks two things: depth and character balance. The game lacks depth in the sense that it's just really easy. No command inputs, button spamming is a legitimate technique, and the characters are completely unbalanced to the point where most of the cast is unviable. While there were occasional balance patches, most updates were focused on fixing bugs rather than fixing characters. As a result, the developers left a lot of mechanics in the game that were just straight up broken. An example of this is guard breaks. A guard break is performed when a character holds a light or heavy attack, or in some cases, use a special, which is also a guard break. This alternate attack will break through blocks and set up for combos, deterring opponents from relying too heavily on blocking. However, in Jump Force, it ended up being pretty abusable, as players found many ways to set up for unreactable guard break cheese combos. If the developers really cared about the game, this could all be easily patched out. Unfortunately, they don't, and it hasn't been. And this isn't even to mention that a few of the characters in the game remain grossly unbalanced and abusable. Luckily, since Jump Force had such a huge roster, eventually growing to 57 characters, there was a large enough variety of characters online that you weren't constantly getting pummeled by top tiers. Still, the online experience wasn't great, especially since ability spamming was an easy and rewarding way to play. As the player base declined due to all of the issues from the single player to the multiplayer, on November 9th, 2021, Bandai announced in a blog post that Jump Force would be removed from stores and its online services would be taken down in 2022. While this seemed inevitable from the start, the news of the game's removal has evoked some criticism levied at Bandai. While Jump Force was a bad game, some in the community feel that it's still important to preserve its existence, and the complete removal of the game from stores feels like an extreme measure to be taking. Unfortunately, the game is set to be removed on February 7th, and online servers will be taken down on August 24th. So while Jump Force players, new and old, can still enjoy the game for now, the end is fast approaching. It's safe to say that Jump Force never quite got off the ground and ended up being a huge missed opportunity to become the next big crossover fighting game. From the start, Jump Force had all the pieces to become a smash success. The game featured a cast of characters as iconic as any ever assembled. It had a ton of initial hype surrounding it from the second it was revealed, but unfortunately, the game was simply unfinished in pretty much every aspect. And instead of being one of the biggest success stories in recent years, Jump Force ended up being one of the biggest disappointments of all time. Maybe one day there will be another developer that is given the opportunity to make an anime crossover fighter that can become the next big thing. Jump Force has made it clear that the desire for a good anime collaboration fighter is out there. But until that game is finally released, Jump Force will always feel like one of the biggest what-ifs in gaming history. This video is made possible thanks to our wonderful patrons. Massive thank you to everyone on this list, and shout out to Jason, B, Brendan, QB, Foxy, Mauve, Pachanas, Sierra, Shampoo, Weeaboo, Spartacus, and Yashichi for being platinum supporters. And an extra special shout out to Steven, Noodles, and Marco for being diamond supporters. Happy New Year! We're glad you're all still here. Check us out on Instagram, linked in the description. If you want to support our channel and get info on unreleased videos, check out our Patreon. If you want to help us out in a different way, leaving a like, subscribing, and hitting the bell to stay up to date is also appreciated. My name is Jonah. Thanks for watching.